What's up, YouTube? We're back for another week's episode of Three Simple Men Making Their Way Through the Galaxy. I'm Tom. With me is Ryan and Mike. And we're back with the Clone Wars again, Season 1, Episode 20, Innocence of Ryloth. Can I just say this right now? Like, watching the episode, now we know how the Empire got their Imperial probe droid designed.
Yeah, I mean, it was almost identical, right? It would, I guess, smaller, right? It's a much tinier
Yeah.
version that we see here, but yeah, I mean, it makes sense, right? We know that at this point we know the Separatists have some form of the Death Star plans. Um, so yeah, a lot of the tech's gonna fold in to the Empire at some point. Yeah, so right off the bat on this episode, we get the quote, "The costs of war can never be truly accounted for." And yeah, we get I'd say this is kind of a darker episode. We're really seeing kind of, I, I guess we had been to Ryloth a while back, and we saw how the war was affecting Ryloth then. It seems like things have gotten far worse, right? Um, we get well, I guess to set the stage, we now know that Mace Windu and Obi-Wan are heading to do the ground assault on Ryloth. But the first step in this attack after Anakin and Ahsoka have cleared the space around it is for Obi-Wan to try to take Nabat City. That's his mission, and he's going in with Ghost Company to take care of it.
Yeah, this is becoming just we're looking at a situation right now. When it comes to like we've talked about like different aspects when it comes to this war, this one felt like a hostage negotiation of
Yeah,
like
well, not even that. We get the direct line from the tactical droid, right? Tactical droid,
Yeah.
yeah,
uh, saying that uh they have Twi'leks to use as human shields. They even use the term human shields. So it doesn't sound like, there's certainly no plans to negotiate. They're hiding behind civilians right now to prevent a full out bombardment. Uh, Another example of the separatists just, using, basically committing war crimes, right? I mean, it's certainly a dirty tactic. Um,
Yeah, it's very interesting with as the droid was talking throughout the episode, whether he's like talking to his droids or talking to Wat Tambor, he's like, "Oh yeah, I've thought of every possible scenario where we're gonna win, whether it's using the proton cannons to prevent the Republic from landing, or using the uh Twi'leks as human shields to prevent them from doing a full bombardment." So as we see throughout this episode, we definitely see two different sets of tactics between tactical droid and Obi-Wan. And once he figures out it's Obi-Wan, it's like, oh crap, he's known for deceptive maneuvers. So we got to stay on top. And at one point, he's like throwing out odds where he's saying, oh yeah, it's the odds of the Republic winning are 742 to 1. So,
spoiler
so yeah,
alert, the tactical droid did make a human error, did make an error. I
yeah.
mean,
I mean, as Han Solo says on the shirt, never tell me the odds. So,
yeah, but when you're a gambler, you want
yeah.
those odds in your favor.
Mm-hmm.
we do get pretty early on some of our clones use I'm gonna call it a derogatory term when referring to the Twi'leks. He calls them tailheads, uh, which I think it's probably a little offensive. Um, so I did notice that at first, where it's kind of like I think they're incorporating it to kind of be like, okay, it's at a point now where the war's been going on for so long that the clones don't even view. It's not just that they view the droids as, their enemy is just things, but now they don't even really care about the other civilian. Like, they're just there like, all right, let's go kill droids, and we don't care about what's going on. But then,
They just want to win the battle. They just want
yeah.
to survive.
But sure enough, our ghost company, we get Waxer and Boyle, who go off with Cody and Wooly to do a recon, and then they split up, and Waxer and Boyle bump into a young Twi'lek, uh, Numa, I think is what her name ends up being.
Did you just say Numa Numa? Maya he, Maya who.
Um,
I was watching that YouTube clip not too long ago.
there you go. Yeah, Numa. I did notice, did anyone catch when the when Ghost Company was landing on the planet? Did you notice one of their ships had some interesting artwork on the side?
No.
There's a paint. One of them has was painted on the side was a monkey rat.
Oh.
Yeah, kind of like as a like they I guess they'd always in World War II, right? They'd paint the side like paint things on the sides of their on their planes and stuff.
Oh
And
yeah,
this
like
like a,
the head of the like a Spitfire or Mustang, it'd be like a red nose with the sharp teeth in the front. They'd paint.
yeah, that
Yeah,
this
they
had
always design. Yeah, that's I never realized that.
so there was a painted monkey rat. I couldn't tell quick enough if it was like fighting something. I'm not really sure, but I saw it briefly and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Um, but so Waxer and Boyle go off and bump into Numa, and pretty quickly, um, you know, first exhibit, especially I think Boyle was the one that was like, what are we doing here? Like, let's leave her. Let's go. We got the mission. And Waxer's kind of like, hey, calm down. It's a kid. Let's figure this out. And eventually they both realize that, well, regardless of what their mission is, they need to make sure the kid's okay, which is nice to see. Um,
Have a heart. Have a heart.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think that's
I
like,
mean, just going back a little bit before we're watching when they landed, we're watching, Obi-Wan being awesome, saying, just throw it, I'll give you assist with the bunkers. And and he's just like force push, and they just droid what they call them, droid poppers.
Mhm.
yeah,
Also, I got a little hot take, maybe deep dive with the droids, the heavy repeating weapon that they were doing, that they were shooting, not their rifles. It was the heavy gun. It kind of reminded me of a Maxim machine gun
Yeah.
from what they used in the First World War. That's just me, history buff, whatever. But yeah, it's and going back to the whole droid popper situation. They're like, can't destroy anything. It's pretty much actually, you know what? We were talking about Band of Brothers before. We're talking about episode 4 of where they're in Holland for Operation Market Garden. You see the British, they're just like, my orders are not to destroy anything. And they're pretty much that means just pick your shots, droid poppers, anything like that. They're not trying to destroy anything, but we just saw Obi-Wan just improvise like, hey, just toss it. I got you.
Yeah. No, and I mean it's a good point, right? Like if the separatists didn't have, human shields, be a lot easier for them just to, do like a flyby bombing or something just to take out these guns. But so they can't do that, so they have to go in with the poppers, which I would assume if a person encountered those, they wouldn't die, right? They're probably non-lethal to people. And then the blasters just, a little more precision, not reckless like an actual like grenade or detonators, I think they mentioned.
yeah,
Um
it's interesting with like the two perspectives because like you had Obi-Wan like saying like, hey, we're here to free the Twi'leks, not destroy their homes, and because what you said with outlining what they can or can't use, I think one or two of the clones on the gunship are like, oh god, it's like at the least the Twi'leks can get out of our way or tailheads.
oh,
So
that
you
was
definitely
that
see,
was that was Boyle. That was Boyle and Waxer.
yeah. So you have them like quoting like, you have that like, oh great, they're just gonna slow us down, and
Mhm.
they're just bred for war. You don't really see that compassion until they run into Numa. So that was like a big theme. In addition to Obi-Wan's tactics versus the tactical droid, those were like the two big themes that stuck out for me.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, we see over time that, as they come to understand Numa, she's starving, she's all alone, and it takes some time for her to warm up to the clones. And then she keeps calling them Nara, and they don't really know what that means. Like, no, my name's Waxer, my name's Boyle. But I think at the point, I think when she keeps taking them on, it's like, oh, hey, here's my home, and they can see it's been destroyed by the separatists, and then they really start to feel for her. It's like, okay, we got to keep her safe. We're not going to hand her over to the droids. But then, and then things get a bit more complicated now on the separatist side. Now we say that, the Republic had like their poppers. Now the separatists are like, oh, hey, we got these beasts that we're going to starve them. They're not going to eat droids. They're really hungry for meat. So you kind of see that as a way of countering
They were like
Obi-Wan's.
a bunch of giant fleas.
Yeah.
Yeah, they look like
Uh,
fleas, but no, you're right. I mean, it's another right. They're not just going to use a weapon. They're going to weaponize another human, well, not human being, but living creature to by starving them to death to force them to go out and eat. It's just again, it's another kind of like messed up. It certainly shows that the droid army, there's no humanity there, right? They don't care. And I think they even showed them in the cell, and like one was dead. Like at one point it showed like these flea things, and one was like lying on the ground. And then again to show that humanity, yeah, they shoot at them at first when they attack, but uh Obi-Wan basically quickly devises a plan like, hey, I'm not gonna kill these things, but I'm gonna just trap them. And um this is the first time. No, because in Attack of the Clones, we see Obi-Wan do a little beast taming, right?
That was Anakin, I think,
yeah.
Anakin does it. So
with
this is the first time we
the
see
Reeker.
Obi-Wan
That's what it was. It was Anakin slowly going like this to the Reeker before he jumped on top of it in the Geonosis battle arena. This is probably the second time we've seen like a
Well, no, we saw Ahsoka do it too.
Yeah.
With the
Yeah.
as a
And
baby.
Tales of the Jedi in that first episode when she's out in the woods with that bear, like,
Yeah.
So the order right now is when it comes to animal taming, Ahsoka, Anakin, then Obi-Wan.
Now Obi-Wan. But yeah, but regardless, this is the first time we've seen Obi-Wan actually do it. Which is kind of cool. Um
Then you just see Cody just go like easy rookie,
this
easy
is like,
rookie.
what?
yeah.
This is incredible.
It's like,
Like,
wow, this is awesome. Or just like, hey, keep it quiet.
we don't do that here.
Mhm.
We're cool around the Jedi.
Listen, you want to have fun, you can go with Anakin for all I care. But we do things by his way. We do it by the book. You got that, rookie?
Yeah, and then when like Waxer and Boyle were like, oh, you see what happens when we're not following orders? And then, yeah, you have them trying to get away from the beast. And then Numa saves the day by having them go down to the sewer. And
Yeah.
it just happens to be that they meet up with Obi-Wan and the rest of the battalion. And then you definitely see that different kind of interaction where we see Obi-Wan quickly bonding with Numa, understand the Twi'lek language, where he's like, yeah, she knows how to navigate and get to the prisoners. And it kind of reminds me of a time like in the original Clone Wars series, like back when they did like that 3 to 5 minute shorts on Cartoon Network. There was one time where Anakin was questioning Obi-Wan's like, well, how do you understand these people? And Obi-Wan's like, when you travel the world with Qui-Gon Jinn, you know a lot in life. So I think probably just having that experience of like getting to know different species and bonding with them, and just it's definitely a different perspective compared to how the clones first treated Numa. So it was nice to see that perspective. And Obi-Wan's like, oh, hey, now we've got another tactic where I'm going to have Cody create the diversion, and we're going to navigate the sewers and rescue the troops.
And I just quote someone very important after what we watched. It would be Master Yoda. Master Yoda would say, "Truly wonderful, the mind of a child is."
Well, Obi-Wan is he's a Jedi, right? We've established that. But I mean, and when I
Not
say
just
he's a
a
Jedi,
Jedi, a master.
but when we say that, I mean like he at least spent his upbringing being trained by the Jedi, not just in wartime. You know, how we've talked about how Anakin, unfortunately, and Ahsoka both kind of lose their way because the whole entire Jedi Order has kind of lost its way. So they're brought up differently. But Anakin or Obi-Wan was brought up at a time of in a time of peace, presumably, which maybe we'll see if they do another Tales of the Jedi, but presumably from or young childhood, uh, and that kind of shows like he has that humanity, that aspect of like one, you know, if you're going to be keepers of peace, you need to know how to communicate. So you need to know the other languages. So it makes
You
sense that
know, you gotta
Twi'lek,
know when to hold them, know when to fold them. Sorry, I was listening to that song on the radio on my way home from work, but continue.
well, yeah, you know, so he had that ability and immediately, you know, we get the hello, which I was like thinking about it for a second. I was like, oh man, he should have said hello there. But he says hello, little one, which kind of reminded me of the original uh trilogy where he says hello there for the first time, but then refers to R2D2 as
I'm here, my little
I
friend.
think he says
Don't
my
be
little
scared.
friend, yeah, not little one. But I was like, oh, it was kind of reminded me of that for a second. They could have dug more
The
into,
gentleness. It's the gentleness of Obi-Wan. That's what you're probably describing.
which is interesting because I'm now remembering a very different Obi-Wan when he was still being trained by Qui-Gon, and he says something along the lines of, "Why do I have a feeling we've taken
Another
on
pathetic life form. Yeah.
another pathetic life form?" Yeah. So there was a time where he wasn't that way, right?
He
But you
got
know,
that's when he was very
lose
sassy
his
with Qui-Gon.
master, maybe, yeah.
Why don't you listen to the Jedi?
So it's interesting to see him evolve and like, you know, at least now here it just shows a better understanding of how to communicate with the people that they're there to protect.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
So we see the diversion being pulled off, and then droid notices Obi-Wan running away with the Twi'leks, and we see that Obi-Wan's using the artillery against them, where he was able to take out almost all the cannons, and then unfortunately we see the droid taking out his cannon. But what the droid didn't realize was that the people were going to come together and they're going to beat the crap out of the droid, which they did.
And we do
So,
get the fun Obi-Wan
Buddy,
putting his
buddy,
hand.
they didn't fucking beat the crap out of him. They removed that goddamn head.
oh yeah,
But and then Obi-Wan covers the eyes of Numa.
Numa, yeah,
He
She's just like,
quickly pushes his hand out of the way to watch as the
let me
two
watch. Let
destroy
me watch.
the
but yeah,
droid.
we see the tactical droids like, wait, this doesn't compute. This doesn't compute.
It's
So he
like,
clearly, as much as he knew that Obi-Wan was deceptive, clearly he did not know how deceptive Obi-Wan really is in combat. So I mean, you see Obi-Wan who really bonds well, but you really see him as a master tactician here. So you really, um, yeah. So it was well played, well strategic, and then yeah,
it's one of those things where it's just more of like that tactical droid. He had the analytics, he had all the plans, he had his stats and all that stuff. But the problem with it with droids and the Republic is if the Republic gains the trust of the people of the planet, that's a different variable, and which he said does not compute because they don't atone to other situations, elements of the planet, the people itself. You know, like we said, we were talking about Numa was showing them the underway tunnel passages through the sewers. The droids didn't probably know that. They didn't scan it. They just assumed what they saw on the planet is what they have.
Yeah,
yeah,
no, because
yeah,
I mentioned earlier, I'll download the information on Obi-Wan. If they don't have
mhm,
information that, hey, if you point a cannon at this little girl, the rest of the Twi'leks are going to rise up and fight you. Not something that was downloaded, not something they could prepare for. Lack of
yeah. I think
humanity,
Human element.
you
It's
know.
the
Yeah,
human
if
element right
if
there.
they were human, they would have been like, oh, pointing a weapon at a small child is not going to get a bunch of people upset. And that's one of the does not compute, does not compute. You know, they weren't expecting the people to rise up because they hadn't, right? They had been captured
Yeah,
this
like
entire time. They were
treated as
running away.
hostages, human
Yeah.
shields, and
But then they
yeah,
came back and they fought for their own, which who knows, might be a sign of what's to come with the planet of Ryloth.
Sadly,
yeah,
that's funny that you bring that up because you do quotes and all that stuff. Then we watch Waxer and Boyle, and then they say goodbye to Numa once everything's all said. And then I forgot who said it. Might have been Waxer. Says, "Don't worry, kid. We'll be back."
mhm.
Yeah, if you've seen all these episodes, if you actually followed
Oh,
all Star Wars,
well, I don't know.
they're going to be back.
Mhm.
But trust me, it's a different story.
Well, I guess that's a story for another day.
Yeah, and it was a nice touch at the
Truly
end
is.
too, because then you had Obi-Wan like telling them Nara means brother, and it really appreciates them more because I mean you have the clones with that brother mentality, but the fact that Numa was as soon as she warmed up to them, she called them brothers throughout the entire episode. So I think just having that humanity is definitely a key element of this episode, and whether it's like with the clones getting to know Numa over time or the tactical droid not recognizing the human element. I think the quote at the beginning, the cost of war can never be truly accounted for. So I think this one it was dark but powerful at the same time.
All right. With that, Mike.
All right,
Hold
well,
on one second. Someone
Oh,
wants to say hi. Come here, Bubba.
well,
hey, Kaz.
Look who's in.
Cosmo.
He's just happy I'm home. All right, Bubba. Good boy. All right, Mike, take it away.
All right, that's a wrap. Thank you, everyone, for joining Three Simple Men, making their way through the galaxy. Hit that like, comment, subscribe, and come back next week for some more Clone Wars content. May the Force be with you, always.